that will.
Order. I want to remind each commissioner to please turn on your mics. And also, I'd like to remind those who wish to address our commission tonight, keep your remarks, please, to the items that are on that committee's agenda. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll recognize Chairman DeBoer of the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call the Budget Committee to order. Do we have any visitors wishing to address the committee?
If I could pass folders out, each one of them, before we start my time. You gonna help me out?
Yeah.
Thank you. Here in Armwood, 1501 Eller Road. Just wanted to address that a group of us went down not quite 2 weeks ago and visited the Coffee County Jail ourselves, which, just as a little bit of a reminder, was a $20 million project in 2010.
The jail is not on the agenda. There's nothing about the jail on the agenda tonight.
Should it not fall under the budget? Are you budgeting for it?
It would be better for you to make your presentation at the regular meeting on Thursday the 23rd. That would be on the agenda.
No, I'll be speaking also on this. Your budget has
We have a resolution of 20-30 joint resolution on the agenda tonight relating to the school system. And also, there's been an item added on internet connectivity. We will not entertain any other comments regarding the budget except those two items, please.
This is
Thank
not
you.
a
You may
special
be seated.
called meeting where it has to be what's on there. You don't have anything that says agenda items only and then non-agenda.
I'm talking about you make your comment on items that are on the agenda only.
The budget is on the agenda. This is the
Yes,
Budget Committee,
please. Keep your comments to the items that are on the agenda.
and you need to let her go on.
I need to continue.
Does your comments deal with the resolution between the Hamilton County government and Hamilton County School Board?
No.
Okay, then,
Then
please
this-
reserve your comments until the 23rd, when the budget is up for discussion. Thank you. You may be seated.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
My name is Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stevens Road. Your budget includes a 3-cent tax increase, as well as your item, particularly that you have tonight. Ms. Arwood was not allowed to present her comments.
I'm going to call you out of order too, Ms. Noy, because we're not discussing the tax increase tonight. We're not discussing anything related to the budget except this joint resolution and internet connectivity. You may be seated and address those comments during the Thursday 23rd.
You've been passed out a packet with the Coffee County information.
Well, do you want the packet back?
No,
Okay.
I have my packet, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You may be seated unless you...
The Coffee County pod design is safer for the correctional staff, for the inmates.
We're not talking about the design of the jail tonight. I've made my point clear. We're talking tonight about this joint resolution. And if you have comments you want to make concerning the joint resolution, we will welcome those comments. Otherwise, you may be seated.
You have never done that with a budget committee saying it has to be, or with the finance committee. People have gotten up here and talked about various things related to
I just
finance.
got through stating before we started.
For the first time you did, because you knew what was coming tonight.
No, I did that last month too. And none of these commissioners have ruled me out of order. When they rule me out of order, then I will change. So,
You think these commissioners would ever rule you out of order, or would ever hold Mr. Britton accountable for breaking the law? No, they're not about to do that.
well, I'm not breaking the law.
I didn't say you were about this, although you are violating your customary guidelines on committee meetings.
You can make your comments on the 23rd. Thank you. You may be seated. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In old business, we have none. In new business, we have resolution 2030, joint resolution for Hamlin County, Tennessee, Hamlin resolution to approve a non-recurring one-time appropriation for fiscal year 2021 to fund non-recurring school buses. Mayor Britton?
In your packet is a resolution that the school board's taking up tomorrow night. It's the resolution that would be passed to approve the $200,000 non-recurring that you approved in earlier budget committee session. And this is the document that will be on the agenda next week when the budget's adopted. Just asking for your approval or recommendation of approval of this resolution.
How many buses was that?
The buses are approximately about 90-some thousand, these 100,000, depending on if it's a special ed bus or a regular bus or a smaller bus, so somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000.
Okay, thank you.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Bennett, seconds. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, like sign. Motion carries. Items of interest we have done, and that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get you out. Here it is, I'm sorry.
Another last minute item.
Internet connectivity, and this one is Dr. Jeff Perry. Would you explain?
Yes. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. As we're approaching the upcoming school year, one of the issues that we have, of course, is online instruction. Currently, we have about 1,700 students that are signed up for online instruction. And it appears from some of our initial requests that we may have anywhere between 30 and 60% of those kids that may not have connectivity in the home or reliable connectivity. So as we begin to talk with some various members of the community and all of those individuals who are providing internet access, there is a desire, of course, to spread connectivity throughout the county. And I believe that there are some federal monies left over that may be designated to the schools. I don't think it's a great deal of money, but it may be some. And the thing that we'd like the commission to begin to consider is, would that be an appropriate use of that money to help provide some connectivity to some of our families who are in need of that. And it's not only a school issue, we also feel that it's also probably a good marketing card for the entire county. I think as people come into a community more, used to, they wanted a good hospital, they wanted good schools, and they wanted a decent quality of living. And now I think as younger generations come in, especially those with disposable incomes that's looking for families, I think all those individuals are looking for connectivity because we no longer live in a world where the internet is just a luxury. It is a necessity. My wife works for Pfizer Pharmaceutical, and she's been online ever since that they stopped them from coming out. And without that, we would have really had to seriously think about how we would survive in this county if we didn't have that particular internet access, because that's her job and that's the only way that she could do that. I know that when we lived in Witt County, we lived out in the country, and she had to go to McDonald's in the morning to get that free Wi-Fi to go ahead and do some of her work, and that was just not a feasible, sustainable kind of process. So as the county begins to look forward, as one of the things that we may want to do is determine if we want to do an initiative to push connectivity throughout the whole county. I think that makes us a much more viable county, not only for just the immediate things of having kids having connectivity at home for the online instruction, but also in terms of real estate values and everything else that we have. And we actually do have some of our MUS and Holston and Appalachia, they are working hard right now to go ahead and get that going. And they do have the necessary, I think, resources and materials and desire to put that even in the remotest part of the counties. So as long as you've got electricity from any one of those providers, there's a possibility of getting the high-speed internet that doesn't have the throttle speeds and some of the other things that are associated with some of the other ones. And it also creates a situation where some of the other vendors, it is not economically feasible for them to run lines, cable in certain areas because they don't have access to the poles and some other kind of things. So, Mr. Chair, the thing that we're asking this evening is that as we go forward, if there is some of that federal money left over, we certainly would want to allocate that, or us go ahead and make an allocation ourselves out of our reserves, and then with an understanding that we could be reimbursed later for that, because it's, what we're finding out, it's about $60 a month for students to sign up for that, and there's no contract associated with that, so students can do it for 9 months while we're in school, no obligation after that. And then the other part that we like about the power companies and utility companies is that there's no fees to sign up, so everything is free to you going into this piece. So, Mr. Chair or members of the commission, any questions?
So you
Yeah.
said,
What, is there a certain section of the county that you're having more problem getting this than any other section?
Well, there's actually two issues. One issue is that out in some of our more rural areas, of course, you know, that there's not that connectivity there. So we've got that problem. And then the other issue we've got, there is connectivity, but in some of our high poverty areas, the Fairviews, the Lincolns, the Hillcrest, some of those areas, it's more of an economic factor than it is actually access to internet. So we're working on two different things there. And we do have some money that we can put toward this from the CARES money that we got, which we will do. But right now with these 1,700 students, we're a little bit concerned about that. What we are even more concerned about is that if we do return to school and our numbers just keep going up and we're forced then to go online, then we've got 10,500 students that we have to connect, and we don't have a plan, you know, to do that in terms of connectivity. Because we've got about 500 hotspots that we've ordered, and that would be, you just take that into your house and then it would use phone service to pick that up. But beyond that, then we would experience some problems.
You're wanting to do that, and then you're wanting to get reimbursed for it.
Part of what we'd like to do, if there are monies left over in federal for some of the schools to use for online instruction and taking care of some of those things, yes, sir, we would like to. Mr. Britton can work out the details of what we're allocated to. The other part that I'm asking, and this is just a start of this, and I know the commission has a ton of issues right now. Believe me, I can appreciate issues more than anybody else right now. But in the future, I think the other thing that we might want to consider, do we want to be the community of the next century? And to do that, I think what we have to do is we have to put internet in every single home, or at least have that accessibility, so that when these businesses come in and these families come in, that's one of the things now that folks are looking for. And I think we've got a good way to do that, but I think some of the local vendors would need a little bit of incentive to get going, because once they get going, then I think people will continue to have it. Because at one point in time, a cell phone was considered to be a necessity, or was considered to be a luxury item. Now I don't think that very many of us would consider that to be, you know, a luxury item. That's almost essential. I think that's the way that internet's going to be in a very short time. And what I think, as people have now realized that working from home has become a much more viable option, many of these major companies now are letting people stay at home, working from home. They're saving the electricity, the office space, everything else. But people can't move here if we don't have internet everywhere.
Dr. Curry, you know how many people we're talking about out there that don't have internet?
You know, it is a little bit hard to determine, but I know that when we asked some of our parents at Hillcrest and Lincoln, it was high as 60% of them did not have internet access, either due to economic factors or it just wasn't available. So that could be in some of our schools, you know, over half of our students would not have access to.
It's $60 a month for each internet connection. And yeah, 10,000 of them might take you $1 million.
It could be. Now, we're not asking, of course, for the county to do all that. What we're saying is there might be some stimulus, economic boost kind of pieces that the county may look at in the future to incentivize some of these local vendors to push this in, because once they get it in, then I think they'll be okay. But there is going to be that initial cost about doing that. So anything that we can do. Now, this is not just from the school system. I also think this is from a community-based piece, is that if we want Hamlin County to be that kind of community where people want to come to live, stay, prosper, and then have some of those families in, then that is a part that we've got to look at, because we found a beautiful place out on Silver City Road. The first thing that my wife did was determine if we could get internet access there. And if we couldn't, that was no longer an option for us.
So it's not that the service isn't out on Springvale like at Hillcrest. The service is there. It's the people that own the houses are not buying into it.
As part of that, is that what we have is that some individuals, if you have a power pole, you potentially could have the service. If we had any incentive to go ahead and hook some of those up and get that going, and then if they kept it, that would be great. If they didn't keep it, then at least the connectivity is then brought from the pole to the house. And then when you go to sell that, as real estate agents come out, they could say that this house does have connectivity. And so we're not talking about supporting people forever. We're just talking about the initial push to really help us get kids online. Then it would be, I think, the economic factors that would maybe come back to the county in terms of being able to.
So there'll be no cost to the student?
Well, no, I think what we would do in this particular part is that we would put in a couple dollars if we could get some money out of federal money, a couple dollars to kind of help supplement and bring the cost down to a more manageable level. So if it is $60 a month, if we could put in $10 from the county, school system put in $10 and bring it down to $40, that might make the difference for some of our parents.
But if you got like 4 or 5 kids in the home, you know,
You got 4 or 5 kids in the home with this particular one, which I believe they're offering gig speed on that. That would be enough to actually take care of 3 students, 4 students probably.
Dr. Perry, is this more like what they have in Chattanooga, where you've got a particular area and that entire geographic area has coverage?
You know, there's a lot of places, and I think when I lived in Virginia, Blacksburg was one of the first ones to create an electronic village, that everybody in the town of Blacksburg had email, when email first came out. That was such a huge draw that people from all over the world came there because they touted that particular piece. If we could say that we had internet connectivity in every home in Hamlin County, I think that's a real big selling plug for the Chamber of Commerce, I think for all real estate agents, and it just puts us, I think, well ahead of some other people, that when individuals come looking for a place to call home, then I think all the other things we got in Hamlin County, which are great, I think that's just one more card that puts us ahead of everybody else, and that brings some of the folks, you know, that have that disposable income, that could start small businesses, that could even start large businesses. It would help. So it's not just for us. Really, it's a situation where we want to see this county prosper, and maybe just that initial incentive could be a huge piece.
It's my understanding that even the power companies who have received federal grants to take, their fiber optic cables out into the rural areas, are still cherry picking. They're going into those subdivisions and neighborhoods out there where there's a lot of people, and then we still have some of those individuals way out in the rural areas that apparently are not going to get service, and we need to address that some way, Bill. I don't know how.
Well, I did talk to MUS, I talked to Appalachian, and I did talk to Holston. Now again, that's a conversation with them, so, but I don't think that is the case now with some of the other ones that they have to lay so much cable that it is a problem with Xfinity and Charter and some of those individuals perhaps, because I know in my own situation, it was so much to lay cable to my house that Xfinity wouldn't do it.
Well, one of those companies you just mentioned is guilty of doing it.
Okay.
I don't want to mention.
Okay.
I cut my power off.
Exactly, you gotta be careful with anybody that controls your technology and your power, you gotta be careful with those folks. But now, and maybe we could have a different conversation, but I don't think for most of them, they've got power or they've got fiber optic to the pole, with the exception of a few areas of the county, but the vast majority of the county, they have connectivity to. Now on the west end, I think there's some issues out on that particular area, but I think in most of the points, they've got access to the poles, and they would have connectivity right there at the poles. So all they do is drop down to your house, and so it's not as big of a deal as some of the other vendors have in terms of the huge infrastructure costs coming in. But we would have to check and make sure that it would be accessible to everybody and get a commitment from folks that if we were going to do anything to support them publicly or to give any incentives.
So you're saying they're gonna have to run a wire out to those people that don't have a wire?
Pardon me?
They're gonna run a wire out there to the people who do not have a wire?
For right now, my understanding, and actually we are doing this right now too, because we currently have a hotspot, and we want to do the wire piece because it will give us a little bit more speed.
Because I got people in my district that, Chris Katz, he don't have no internet because of that, there's nothing out there. And they refuse to run wire out past Macedonia Road.
Is this Holston or Appalachian? Or MUS?
Appalachian.
Now, Holston was much more aggressive. Appalachian, the thing that they do have some issues with, I think that some of the grants that they normally apply for, we are a little bit more affluent in Hamilton County than some of the other places. So they are building out into some other areas. But I think in terms of Holston, they seem to be pretty aggressive. And again, I'm not up here as a spokesman, I'm not getting paid by Holston or Appalachian or anyone else, but I think the thing that I am trying to communicate to the commission, first of all, short-term immediate pieces. If there's any of the federal money left, we would like to request some of that to help us with connectivity, because they can do this in just a matter of days. So if you call them and it is in their schema of plans, they can get you hooked up in less than a week. And they actually can hook up about 1,000 people a month, they said. And if they really need to ramp up, they can even increase that to larger numbers. But what we're asking for is the immediate piece, but then to also just simply start the conversation. Because I think online instruction and working from home is going to be a huge piece in the near future. And if we're ahead of that curve, I think we as a county are going to prosper from that, because you never want to be the physician loading up with leeches when they find out that penicillin is available. You want to be that kind of person that sees what the next step is, and I do think that probably connectivity is one of those huge, huge pieces. So certainly it may be worth the while for the commission to set up maybe a conversation with some of these folks and actually see what is available. But it seems like to me, at least from some of the initial conversations in US and Holston, seem to be very aggressive with that piece.
Would any of these vendors that you've spoken of, have you
you approached them, or do you think they'd be willing to maybe give a rate break under the circumstances for these students?
We are talking to them about that. I think that we are looking at the possibility of some grant opportunities. In some of, from my understanding, I don't know all of their bylaws, but it seems like from some of their bylaws that it may be, it may not be possible to give a break where they're a co-op. That if you do that and you give to certain people and then other people are paying more, it appears not to be fair somehow. But we did try to do that to see, could you give us a break? And I actually just spoke to one of the individuals right before I came, and she said that they were not able to do that. Now, if they could get some grants or some other kind of funding, then they could do that. But in terms of just offering a cut rate, they couldn't do that.
What about this, I saw in the paper the other day, this K-12, where they're issuing some $25,000 to $100,000. Would you file in, you wouldn't file that?
Now, there's a K-12 online educational program. Is that what you're talking about? No, that's kind of like an online school, so that's a little bit different thing. They're actually providing the online instruction, but still got to have connectivity to get there. So we'll provide the online instruction free. There's sometimes a charge for some of those things. We're providing it free. What we're trying to do is just make sure that kids can connect to it, because some of them, and you guys probably know a little bit about this, but some of these vendors actually have a throttle speed. So once you reach a certain amount, then it retards back, and you can't get full speed. And if we've got 2 or 3 kids working from one home, then that creates some problems that there's no way that all those individuals could get on at any one time.
Mr. Chairman, I know in our budget, when we dealt with some of the extra money that extra stimulus money was,
It was the local government grant, support grant that the state was giving, yes.
through, was that part of the stimulus money?
No, it's state money,
Okay.
but that is what we were talking about with that money.
And that is a small amount. It's not going to take care of every single issue that we have. But what we'd like to do is, as you begin to look at that, we would like to do this sooner than later, because if we wait until December, January, then we'd have a bunch of students that may not have access to online instruction that we would need anyway. So if we could just discuss that, and we could come to a resolution, because I think there's some money that may be carved out for local schools. And if that is the case, if we knew how much that was, we would go ahead and upfront the cost and then just receive the reimbursement later. So I don't think that we're asking for anything beyond what I think the county may be required to give us anyway, if that's correct. I don't know if that's true or not, so it's not true. Mark that off then. I'd like for it to be true. But if there are monies available, then we would like to be able to investigate the possibility of providing some connectivity for students so that we got the online instruction.
Do we have any idea? We use our extra for extended school programs. Do we need to revisit that?
What you talked about last week was, and what Commissioner Doty talked about was the extended school program, is funding that. Like the undesignated funds was about $24,000. That's undesignated, that was mentioned to go to ESP, but if you want to use it for this, you can do that.
That was my question for Dr. Perry. Do we have any idea what the initial funding you might need for this?
If we have the 1,700 students, we can pretty much, I think, take care of all 1,700 students. With the hotspots that we've got coming in right now, plus some other things that we're doing, I think we're good for the initial go. However, if we go to school for a couple months and then we begin to see an increase and we have to go all 10,000, that's when we're going to get overwhelmed. We could do fairly well with the computers, I think, because we've already got 3,000 in the high school. We have enough within the schools that we could farm out, because if we're not in school, there's no need of keeping those computers in school. Plus, we've ordered another 3,000 with federal money. So then we would be able, I think, almost to take care of every single family for sure, and then also give multiple computers to those with multiple students in the house. But the connectivity part, computers won't do us any good if we don't have internet access.
And Mayor, this is considered capital, according to the grant, okay?
And with the extended school program, that is something too that I think that the commission seriously needs to consider. Because last year, we kept our extended school program open. So we provided daycare when school was out. And we provided free daycare for all essential workers. So all of our law enforcement, medical, some of those folks. We ended up, depending on how you count it was close to $100,000 that we provided for the community during that particular stint. And so if we get in another situation where we close school down, we don't want our local economy to grind to a halt because parents can't go to work. And so we're prepared, and we've already talked through the situation about how we can keep our extended school program open and really vamp it up so that we can still take care of every parent who wants to send their child to extended school. Now, I will tell you this, we've had it open the entire time. We had 2 cases. It was actually 2 staff members. We reopened. We didn't have a single case after that. And then we've had summer school for the last 4 weeks with 150 students in one school. We didn't have a single case there either. So I think that we can bring students back, and we had small groups and spread them out. But we have small groups and we spread them out. That's not efficient. It's effective, but it's not necessarily efficient. So we do want to consider that, because we are going to need some help to keep that open if we're going to provide any free. Now, parents are just paying for it, but some folks might have to make a decision of that they can make more money off of unemployment than they can go to work if they got to pay child care. And so, but we actually offer it pretty cheap. So that's another issue. I just don't want to throw that out, because I think that is a critical part. We need to keep our economy going if the school system has to shut down. And we've got plans in place to handle a significant number of students if that were to happen. We just might need some help financially from you guys and from the city if we're going to continue to do that. So I know, Mr. Chair, there's a lot of questions, more questions than answers, but I just wanted to at least start the conversation about immediate funding on a short-term basis, but then also to begin to generate that question about, do we want to aggressively push connectivity throughout the whole county, and then see if we do provide any incentives, will they get more aggressive about going into some of the areas that they've been reluctant to go into in the past?
And Dr. Perry, I'm sorry, but I'm not understanding what the ask is. So if the ask is, do we do something now? We don't have enough information to do something.
Right. No, all that we're asking for right now is if there is money available in discretionary funding, what we're asking for is, can we have some type of commitment that could be provided to us, and then we will pay up front and then hopefully get reimbursement later. And I think it's a small amount of money. The amount of money that Mayor Britton and I talked about initially was $24,000, $28,000, so it's not a huge amount of money. But then the other part is just simply a discussion to begin talking about this and put it in your mind about, is this something that in the future there's anything that the commission can do. Now, I doubt there's anything right now that you can do, because you got a lot of things going on. But the initial request is this discretionary money, could that be allocated toward this particular project?
So we need an answer to that.
No, we don't need an answer today. And we didn't expect an answer today. I mean, we brought the suitcase just in case you had the $28,000. But we understand that that you, on this first, everything's got to start with a discussion. And everything's got to start with an awareness that there is a problem out there. And so, just as you go through, if you can begin having that discussion that, is there any money available that we could provide children who don't have internet access? Is there any way that we could help them? And we can do hotspots, but the problem with the hotspot is that sometimes that speed is not as great, and it is totally dependent upon satellite or phone service normally from Verizon or somebody else, AT&T. If you don't have that access to that particular service, it's not going to work. If you've got access actually coming off the pole to the house, that will work with a guaranteed speed. So Mr. Chair, the only thing that we're doing is starting a conversation, and we'll come back later and have the additional conversation, but
A lot of technology to be considered there.
it is a great deal, and the amount that we're talking about in these discretionary funds, you know, is not certainly going to get internet in all parts of the county, but it might end up starting to get people to discuss this and talk about this, and there may be some other opportunities. So, Mr. Chair, certainly available for any other questions if you have, but I know you got a lot to do, and I won't take up any more of your time unless you have questions.
Anyone with any additional questions?
Feel free to contact me later if you need to, and I'll talk to you about this, and maybe we can have some conversations later about long-term and short-term kind of pieces, but certainly appreciate all that the commission does. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Ford. Chairman Ford of the Finance Committee, you're recognized.
We'd like to call the committee to order. Do we have any visitors wishing to address items on the schedule? In reoccurring business, the expenditure reports are there. Do we have a motion to approve those items as submitted?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, like sign? Motion carries. In new business, we have 4A, bid tabulation for the new non-refurbished personal computers, 2020-0601. Mayor Britton?
If you look in your packet, there's a bid tab for the PC bid, and the recommendation from our IT department is the first company at the left, Technology Express from Kingston. They have the low bid on PCs at $634 for the standard configuration. And the explanation at the bottom of the page that Mr. Adkins gives is the low bidder on most of the items, positive experience in previous projects, and they currently hold the contract with the Board of Education. So that's the recommendation.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion, Chris Capshaw. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Doty? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, like sign? Motion carries. Item 4B, Resolution 2031. This is resolution of the County Commission of Hamilton County, Tennessee, authorizing the issuance, sale, and payment of Hamilton County Interfund Loan Capital Outlay for notes, Series 2021, not to exceed $300,000. Mayor Britton?
What this is for is about 5 years ago, the county, or actually LANTO, which is the Lakeway Area Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization, was awarded a state grant to do safety improvements in school zones. And mostly in Hamilton County, there were a couple of zones in Jefferson County. And so Hamilton County chose to be the I guess, administrator of the grant. And so what this does is basically allows us to borrow money from ourselves, borrow money from debt service, put it in capital projects, and cash flow the improvements this fiscal year, and then when we get the state money, pay the capital outlay note off. And the intent is for this to be paid off by the end of next June. But this is just the process we had to go through to be able to have that money to cash flow the project.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion? If not, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, like sign? Motion carries. Item 4C, resolution 2020 for the JAG grant. Mayor Brennan?
The CHAG grant is a federal grant that is one, I guess, alternated between the city of Morristown and Hamilton County, and 2021 is the year for Hamilton County. And this generally is used for computers or some kind of electronic device for the law enforcement community. So this is just a resolution to allow us to apply for it.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion.
I have a motion, Mr. Petrov, any
Second.
second, Mr. Minnick? Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
The opposition? Motion carries. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman of the Board. At this time, we'll recognize Chairman Doty of the Personnel Committee.
This time I call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. Are there any visitors wishing to address the committee at this time about items on our agenda? Seeing none. Old business, there's none. New business, we have the hotspot vacation policy. Mayor Britton.
Mr. Chairman, I want to request to withdraw this proposal. Basically, the intent of the proposal was to protect our employees and who maybe went on vacation in an area such as, let's say, Myrtle Beach, that was considered a hot spot. And in conversations with different department heads and elected officials, we just felt that it probably was not as enforceable as I first thought it would be, and was not as clear, because primarily the definition of a hot spot is what the issue is, and we're a hot spot. So do we not want them to come home, after vacation? So I just was asked to withdraw the item.
Thank you, Mayor Britton. No other items of interest, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Doty. This time, we'll recognize Chairman Stepp of the Calendar and Rules Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Call to order the Calendar and Rules Committee. Any individual wishing to speak or address the committee, please do so at this time.
Linda 2343 Joe Stevens Road. I believe on your calendar and rules, you have the Budget Committee report from your last meeting, which has the 3-cent tax increase, among other things. And so I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the tax increase and how we might avoid that. We can avoid that tax increase by getting away from a $75 million all-in jail. If we do what Coffee County did, and you have the packet with the information, we can build 2 pods, or in our case, we would build 3. Coffee County built 2 200-man pods. They have 50 people in each quadrant in each pod. So you've got a much safer jail due to the separation of the inmates. You have a control tower at the top, and if you look at the pictures that were taken there, you can see how they are able to sit up there, monitor 100 people or 200 people by rotating all the way around in the 4 pods. So it has safety built into it. It has less staff. As you know, Sheriff Jarnigan sent you a letter on January 13th saying he cannot staff what you were talking about based on Jim Hart's report, or even a reduction of Jim Hart's report. Yes, I know his figure is not set in stone, In fact, if you could probably do it with 20 people if you had really super duper unbelievable people. They don't care how many people you have in your jail supervising. They care how it's done and that it meets standards. But with the Coffee County pods, it's safer for the inmates due to the elimination of elevators, separation of inmates into pods, and easier evacuation if needed. Per the article in your packet, the Coffee County Jail was approximately $22 million. Well, we can add another pod, and let's say we start with the 22 million. We add another pod, add another 36%, at 8 million. Now we're at 30 million for a 600-bed facility. Fortunately, we already have a Justice Center, so we can renovate the Justice Center we have and provide a connector to these jail pods. One estimate for renovation would be about $5 million. You could pretty well gut the inside and make your nice, new, larger, and nicer facilities for courtrooms. Add in another 14 or 15% for inflation because Coffee County was built 6 or 7 years ago. That adds another $5 million. Now we're up to $40 million, and we have a 600-bed facility and a renovated Justice Center. Yes, there would be architectural costs for redesign, but even with an architect's fee of 5% or 5.5%, that only adds $2 million to the cost. So we have a redesigned, new 600-person jail, totally renovated Justice Center for $42 million. That is a far cry from the $70 million left on the bond issue for the jail and jail-related costs. It cuts immediate construction costs, it cuts interest costs over the 30 to 40-year life of the loan. But perhaps most importantly, if we're concerned about people and safety, whether it's inmates or staff or the public that might visit there, this is a win-win-win for the county. The staff wins, the inmates win, and there's less fighting, there's less contention, as they pointed out to us in Coffee County, and as is mentioned in one of those articles. And the taxpayers in the community win. This all started out as a jail problem, a $30 to $35 million fix. Look where we are now. The schools are wanting more money. Who pays it all? The taxpayers, but nobody seems to be concerned about them. If you can save $30 million and have a safer jail, less staffing, somebody needs to say no to the overblown design we currently have and start over.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Address this?
Thank you.
Karen Harwood, 1501 Eller Road. Linda covered a lot that I was planning on covering earlier when I got cut off, but anyway, just wanted to also, as far as various things go, in Coffee County, all the inmates wash all county cars. It's a 2-for-1 deal. Problem due to overcrowding within a jail, in one of the articles that you got a copy of, it talks about 50% or more is due to pre-trial detention, simply people that cannot make bail. That, I don't know why in the world taxpayers to begin with need to be supporting people just because they can't make bail. Once again, I'm going to reiterate, innocent until proven guilty just got thrown out the window based on financial situation. And also, when this started out as a jail-only issue, and then somehow we got a new Justice Center thrown in and all that stuff, the overcrowding in the courtrooms, Is it at 9 a.m.? It's a scheduling, or has been a long time scheduling issue of having everyone for court that day to show up at 9 a.m. They go through the docket in less than an hour, then they got God's room. I know for a fact that Judge, about a month ago, as soon as it was all crowded, people there ready to go, had somebody come up and take pictures so they could show just how overcrowded they are. Well, the first hour's over with, you've got all kinds of room, it's scheduling. And I understand now, due to the coronavirus, that they're scheduling about 10 people per hour, and guess what? They're not overcrowded. They don't need bigger courtrooms. So let's step back and start thinking about some things here, people. Please? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Road. This must be a calendar and a rules committee. I was at that courtroom over there. I was the one who seen Judge Decker take the bench and freely admit that he's trying to get pictures to show to you guys. And then 30 minutes later, empty seats everywhere. The problem that you guys are trying to spend all these millions to fix is a scheduling problem. It doesn't require millions of our tax dollars to do it. But you're pushing ahead with it, and I don't understand why. When the people want to come up here and address you about it, you want to shut them down. You don't want to hear what the people have to say? Wow. Why didn't one of you have the guts to stand up and make a motion and go, let's just hear the people out? Are you puppets on a string?
That's enough.
You could have made the motion. One of you could have stood up and said, let's just hear the people out. It would have been that easy. Why are y'all so afraid of us? If you're not puppets on a string, do you have a puppet master that you're dancing to? Or are you going to stand up? Standing up here and pushing that yes button is the easiest job in this county. You can train a gorilla to sit up here and do that. Where it takes guts and courage and leadership is to push that no button. To stand up here and say, look, we can't do this. You can't give everything that they want here. You've got to start considering the cost of it out here. You've got to get it off our backs. Have some guts one time and stand up and say, no. That's where your courage is. I stood up here in Rogersville Saturday, and I seen just 300 people out of this whole area that would have the guts to stand up and say, no. Where were y'all at? Where are the ones that we elected to be our leaders? Where were y'all at? You elected on us common people to be the ones that have to stand up there and say no. A lady that normally sits in this commission up in her 70s had to stand in front of that flagpole and face off with everybody. A bunch of little young thugs. Where were y'all at? When are y'all going to stand up and have some backbone and some guts and say no? I don't think you're ever going to. Because you're showing these people here that you are puppets, having your strings pulled. And that's not what we elected you to do. Stand up. You ain't got to dance along to somebody's tune. You can stand out here with the people and stand up for them one time if you just do it. And why? You bring this man up here because you don't like what people are saying to intimidate them. You bring him, you send somebody down here who's not even on your county commission, who's a county attorney, runs down and pulls him up here. Was this lady threatening you? You just didn't like what she had to say. So you got to intimidate her. And bring a man up here who works for the very department that y'all are sitting up here trying to sell out. The very department that's telling you what you're pushing won't work. Well, y'all in arrogance sit up here, we can make it work. One sometime y'all need to step some videos, sit back and watch yourself and see how you look up there. When I train students in the military, one of the first things I used to do is get a mirror. Say, hey, watch yourself. You see what somebody's seeing when they look at you. Maybe y'all need to start seeing what we're seeing, watching y'all. Because it's shameful.
Chairman Stipp, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
I was contacted twice, or more than once this week, and asked to have some comments available to add it to the agenda. I did that. I asked. And according to our chairman, they will be addressed. I mean, they weren't trying to shut anyone down. They will have their say. It was just tonight that it wasn't on there. I take offense to the idea that we're trying to shut them down.
Thank you.
First of all, my name's Edna Grant, and I was the one that contacted him. I'll take responsibility for that. I do want to impress upon you, I had the pleasure of going to Coffee County. It is safer for our officers, it is safer for our inmates. I wouldn't want one of my children to have this young man's job back here because of the safety factors. They should be protected. Now, the most impressive thing that I seen in Coffee County was what the chief deputy told me. We want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. No offense, folks, you need to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. Some of you are quite young, you're still working. Some of you are my age, you're retired. Unfortunately, I still work. I have to pay the bills. But my point is, you've done voted on a 3-cent property tax increase. You know it's not going to stop there. By that staffing report, you're going to go from 43 to 128. That is the biggest ticket item that any of you business owners have, if you'll agree with me tonight. Because not only are you going to have salary, you're going to have Social Security match, you're going to have Medicare match, you're going to have benefits, vacation, you're going to have all this. For you that aren't business owners, I'm sure you don't know what I'm talking about. But the one of you that are business owners, you know what I'm talking about. That's the biggest expense you have. And it's not just true for a business owner, it's true for Hamlin County. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've asked for the salaries and the wages for 18 and 19 for the sheriff's office, because I want to know what I'm looking at. Now, you may have done sooner. If you have, I appreciate it if you post them so the rest of us can see them. But you need to be, some of you are, you're excellent stewards. You stood up and you fought, and I want to say thank you to each one of you that did that. But for the rest of you that have not, please wake up. Older taxpayers are going to lose their homes over this. That wasn't intended for God's plan, honey. God intended for us to look out for our old folks. He did not expect us to run it over, put them out, or do otherwise. So please wake up. If you need to revisit Coffee County, do so. I was up here when Sheriff Jonathan reiterated to you folks that a 4-level jail would not work. Now, I respect our county mayor, but I want to tell you up front, we tow for a living. I don't think he knows how to hook up a truck and put it on there. But I don't know how to do his job. But everyone who knows how to do the job needs to be the one that's laying out the plans. It doesn't need to be somebody that's just got a degree. Fine, I've got a degree, but I can't do his job. I can't do yours. I give it a good shot, but I can't. My point is this, please listen to your sheriff. He deals with this on a daily basis. Now, if I remember correctly, Mr. Catshaw asked him if he would sit down with him. I wish he had done so, okay? Because I think at that point, 6 of you would have listened to him. The other 6 of you probably wouldn't have. And for that, I apologize. But you just need to wake up, because you're putting a burden on the great-grandchildren. Not just the children, not the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren. Please, consider it. Think about it. You don't have to rush in and build this big old jail. We need a basic jail. I don't drive a luxury car, I drive a basic. What about you folks? Do you go in and drive one of the luxury Mercedes? Or, let's see, what is it? The high dollar one. I don't know that much about cars, boys. I do know what I can afford. But Christians need to step back and take a look. Please, before it's too late.
And anyone else? If not, any old business, there is none old business. We'll go to item 4A. Do I have a motion? I'm sorry, review the regular calendar items. Do I have a motion? Go through. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, just one, we need to delete the hotspot vacation policy off of that.
Which one, I'm sorry, say again.
The personnel committee report, we need to take that off.
Okay. With the personnel, need to approve the, regular calendar item with the personnel committee item taken off. Do I have a motion to approve that? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Who seconded it?
Any discussion? All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4B, review the consent calendar items. Do I have a motion to approve consent calendar items?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Who got a second? Tim Warren. Any discussion? If not, all approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman Step. We stand adjourned until Thursday, the 23rd.
Thank you.